So the Vishuddha Chakra is the fifth chakra, the throat chakra. This chakra, as you see here, has 16 petals. Okay. The seed mantra for this, or the seed mantra or word for this chakra is the word Ham, H-A-N, or Han, H-A-N. The meaning of the word Vishuddha means pure, or the specially pure. Okay, so this is the center of purity, also related. It's located in the throat, related to the element Akash or ether, right? Which is sound, which is word, which is expression. Aspects of this chakra: knowledge and creative capacity. This chakra is connected to not just the throat, but also our ears, right? It's the occult ear. And so this chakra allows us to tune into that inner voice, right? That inner source of guidance, which we call the being in Gnosis. And in order for us to listen to that inner voice, we say that we need to learn how to be silent, right? And so it has to do with controlling sound, with controlling your voice, with learning how to use the voice. And so here we can talk about we'll talk about the internal and external value of the word, as we spoke in first chamber in class number 21, when we talked about, or 22, when we talked about the universal sound, right? We talked about everything in creation is sound, and this is why this chakra is related to creativity and our creative potential and our expression and action, right? This is the chakra of movement. This is where the sound is movement, right? It begins to move things, and with our word we create, right? Which is what the word abracadabra means, right? And you'll see this in all of the different myths and stories, right? The emphasis on magical conjurations and magic through specific spells, through specific words. And so one of the things that this chakra is teaching us is that everything that comes out of our mouth is creating something, right? And even when we use silence, that in itself is an expression of being, right? It's because silence in itself doesn't really exist. There's no such thing as real silence, right? But we do say that silence is rather a state of being, a receptive state of being, because there is always the being is ever present, and the being always has information, always has knowledge, right? And so then obviously in order to that's why you see, right, different masters in the Zen tradition very respectful of words, and they try to speak less and be very quiet and silent. Silence is also related to stillness, and so this influences the mind, right? Stillness of the word, still physical stillness begins to trigger or influence mental and emotional stillness, right? So we'll talk more about all of this, and this is why this is related to the sense of hearing, right? And the sense organs are the ears. The fundamental vowel that we can use very easy to activate this chakra is A, the word A, okay? Which is obviously the Latin version of the pronunciation, the letter E or A, or the mantra Han or Ham, right? This 16 petals. And we'll talk about that very interesting relationship between this this chakra having 16 petals and the and tarot card number 16 that you see here now, right? Which is called fragility. We'll get into that in a little bit, but one thing that you can realize or put together here is that our life, right, depends on what we do, on actions, right? And the verb is action because the verb creates, right? How many times have we said things that set up a different chain of events, right? And how many times have we said, oh man, maybe I should have kept my mouth shut. Or maybe I should have spoken, right, when I was supposed to. As Master Samael explained, it is a crime both to speak when you're not supposed to speak, or to be silent when you should speak, right? And so very interesting. So this tarot card here represents a total change in one's life, a 180-degree change, where this ray, that's the ray of Okidanok, as we refer to the being, or the ray of creation, comes to strike and destroy the false life of the ego, right? Which is good, because the being is here to rectify, right, our lives. And the reason why a lot of the times this is a painful process and we suffer is because we've created an existence separate from the truth, separate from the universal truth, from harmony, from love, right? Okay, so yeah, so we'll talk about that. Just trying to give you all a little preview, and so you have a little bit of understanding when we begin to meditate. The relationship to the human machine is the center of movement, right? As we've spoken in that lecture, The Human Machine, we say that we have the 5 centers of the human machine, right? Intellect, emotion, instincts, sex, and movement, which most people tend to put movement and instinctive in the same, they're part of the same brain, right? The motor, instinctive, and sexual brain. Then we have the emotional and the intellectual. But this one in particular, you can see here, right, at the top of the spinal column here in the cerebellum, right, we have the center of movement. That's why when we receive a hit here to this part of the body, we lose movement, right? And so, and again, movement, because the word, right, is sound, and sound is movement. So it all relates to this area, right? And so then, depending, or to say this better, the way in which we use our verb, the way in which we use our words, right, influences the rest of the human machine, influences the movements, okay? And obviously there are, as Master Samael explains, harmonious, loving, kind words, and there are disharmonious, hateful words that create illness in the body, right? And so, and again, not only the physical words that we express, but even the internal words, right? The inner conversations that we're having with ourselves all the time, right? That's an important factor in all of this, right? Negative thoughts, even when not expressed, are negative thoughts and are there, and your physical body is responding to those thoughts, right? Form of the element, the crescent moon. Predominant psychological defect, lying, okay? And so obviously the positive, when this chakra is spinning in a positive way, we are honest, right? We are sincere. We are truthful, right? We have no need to lie. And so anytime that we're lying, we are, if we Master Samael invites us to reflect that when we lie, we are deforming or distorting something, right? And so when we are lying, we are distorting the true essence, the pure essence of being, right? And again, this is why, you know, we relate this to the name of the chakra, pure, right? To which is again related to purity, related to being truthful, to being honest, to being sincere, and so forth, right? Oh, and here's a reflection that I was saying. It is as bad to speak when we should remain silent as it is to remain silent when we should speak, right? And this is something that, again, in the Buddhist tradition, and especially in the Zen tradition, they really they're constantly meditating, right? And it's not just, again, not just words, but action, right? Like if you know, for instance, if you see an injustice happening and you just remain there with the possibility of stopping that injustice, if you do nothing, then you're an accomplice, right? And so even internally speaking, esoterically speaking, when we take this in a psychological aspect, we can also say that we pay a lot of karma because we allow the ego to act, right? And we as essences, our consciousness, stay here passively doing nothing when the ego manifests, right? Which is denying the being, and it's allowing that evil nature, right, to manifest. And so yeah, so that's just a little bit of an intro into this chakra. Now let's go into the meditation, and then we'll go deeper into this. This chakra is also related to the thyroid gland and the endocrine system, and I'll talk a little bit about you know, the relationship that the endocrine that this gland has in the physical body. So we'll study a little bit of that. And yeah, and then the way to balance this chakra, obviously the essential way to balance this chakra is by learning to be pure, right? By learning to pronounce sacred words. And this is where we have the whole tradition of mantra yoga, right? Or prayer, which is to always be reciting or have God, have divinity present within you. And again, you can be connected with that divinity through prayer, through mantras, as we do here, or even through silence, right? Through just being in a state of silence, being in a mindful state, being in a receptive state. That allows for not just this chakra, but all of the chakras really to become balanced or active, right? Okay, so let's begin the meditation then.